Hi, I'm Kim Copperthwaite. I'm an English language arts teacher at Freeport Middle School in Freeport, Maine. I'm a teaching consultant, and I'm also doing curriculum development work for Peace Literacy. In this video, I'm going to show you how I taught Lesson 3 of the Peace Literacy Unit, Navigating Crisis, Uncertainty, and Technology in a Global Pandemic. This unit was written by Paul K. Chappell, Peace Literacy and Leadership Director of the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation, by Stephanie Clapes, Learning Specialist and Educational Consultant, and Donna Cowles, Curriculum Specialist. All of these pieces of the unit can be found on the website peaceliteracy.org under Curriculum. So let's move into Lesson 3 with a brief overview. The name of this lesson is Navigating the Fog of the Digital World. And an essential question that I was able to pull out for students is, how does the digital world affect how we function as human beings? So in this lesson, students go beyond examining the intersection of the outer world and the inner world, which is something that they did in Lesson 1, to seeing the digital world as another layer, another intersection in their lives. Students learn how the military term mechanical distancing relates to the metaphor of fog clouding us from seeing each other's humanity in the digital realm, and then thinking about all of this in relation to our lives right now as the whole world is coping with the COVID-19 pandemic. So as with my last lessons, I did a very quick video of myself explaining the lesson, and I posted that on Google Classroom, along with a list of activities and a question set that students needed to do. So what I did is I took the questions that were in the slide presentation and I just typed them on a Google Doc. I posted that Google Doc on Google Classroom and asked students to copy it, type their responses, and turn it back in. As with the other question set, I encourage students to answer each with elaboration and refer to information from the slide presentation. In middle school, it's very important to keep referring students back to the text. In this case, the slide presentation is the text for the information that they learned. And also, again, emphasizing that thinking and writing is a rehearsal for speaking. Students in this lesson will be taking their thoughts that they wrote about into a small group discussion on Zoom and then ending with a final project. I'd like to show you the question sets or the way I created the questions. Here's where I just simply typed them onto a Google Doc with directions and took the questions 1 through 9 are just very simply from the slide presentation, and they're asking for very basic content information. 2 of the questions that were important were more analytical in nature, so I separated them. Number 1 at the bottom for an analytical question is, when we use digital technology, how can empathy help us see through the fog of mechanical distance? And number 2, when we use digital technology, what kinds of healthy habits can we develop to increase our empathy and reduce mechanical distance? So here's where I'm looking for them to take their content knowledge and extend it with a little analysis and reflection and put their own thoughts, their authentic opinions into this. All right, so then, oops, I'm gonna go back a little bit. After we did that, we went on a Zoom discussion. For Lesson 2, I did a whole group discussion with 25 students and felt that that didn't work out so well. And I put students this time in small groups of 4 or 5 students. I scheduled them on the hour and we had small group discussions on Zoom. I found this so much better. I found that I didn't have to lead the discussions. Often the students would start talking on their own on a topic as they answered the questions with one another. And it also opened up, I think, a little safety for students to elaborate a little more and talk personally about their own digital life. Here's where I saw students really were connecting with the idea that the digital world offers a bit of protection and isolation or insulation to people who feel like they want to use it as a platform to cyberbully. And they really understood how that could happen, where we don't feel as safe face-to-face, but oftentimes people take on a whole different identity online. And that was a topic that came up quite a bit in the small group discussions. And also the emphasis that being kind and having empathy for one another online, especially during this time, is very, very important. I'd like to share with you the final project that I came up with for students. So I'm going to click on the final product descriptor, and I'll just show you the top. The way I do it for online learning is to be super clear with due dates and pieces that they have to do and reporting in with me online as they're going through the process of their project, so I can give them some feedback and guidance. All of this is something I would naturally do in the classroom, but I had to kind of give this some foresight before I had kids go working off on their own in their own homes. It really is a different way of thinking. So I just want to show you that as an example, where I set all the dates up there, and then I'd really like to show you the menu choices that I put together for students to choose. So with students, I always try to give them a choice for final projects. Students had a choice of working alone or with a partner, and it was split pretty 50-50 with my students as to what they chose. And I gave them 9 choices, and the 10th one is a choice I always put on my projects, which is design your own project. So I'll review with you some of the ideas here. For number 1, 2, and 3, it involves story or playwriting. Write a short sci-fi story or a fantasy story or a 2-character play, maybe a radio play with sound effects. I got quite a few fantasy stories. Write a fantasy short story of the boat in the storm that travels from the inner world of someone's mind across the overlap and into the outer world. Number 4 is a different one altogether. That's where students could create a museum of the future that could teach people what it was like for people during the COVID-19 pandemic. They might even make an actual or a virtual time capsule, a podcast, an iMovie, a photo diary, anything that showed what it was like to live during this time. I have quite a few students who are cartoonists. So I offered number 5, which is to draw a cartoon of a hero cutting through the fog of mechanical distance in the digital world and saving humanity during the pandemic. Number 6 was asking students to really act as a reporter, to pay attention to how people are talking around them, what's being mentioned in the outer world on the news, what kind of emotions and empathy is being expressed, and then write it as a reporter. Number 7 is about a photo essay, to do a close-up and far-away photo essay. Photograph things close to you that represent your emotional responses and your inner thoughts, and then do far-away shots to things that represent the outer world, and then just do a little explanation and arrange your photos. So I did have a few students really like that one. So I called that the close-up and far-away photo essay. Number 8 asked students to take a common song and rewrite the lyrics and maybe even perform it, record themselves, get a family member to play along on an instrument. Number 9 was to write a poem for 2 voices, and the 2 contrasting voices could be anything related to any topic that was in the slide presentations in any of the lessons. They could do a poem for the voice of the inner world and the outer world, before and after COVID-19, the good side and the bad side of digital life, attention and empathy, how it's expressed in a classroom setting, attention and empathy, how it's expressed on a digital learning environment. And number 10, design your own. So I was not able to track down the permission from students and their families to show you some of the actual projects because it's summer. It's been hard to get in touch with some students. But I want to share with you 4 of the outcomes or the final projects that I got that I really liked. So I had 2 students do a song for 2 voices straight out of COVID. and that is a parody of the song Straight Out of Compton by the rap group NWA. They had a great fun with that. It was okay. The rap was okay, but it was full of concepts from everything they learned in all 3 lessons. We also had a great fantasy short story called Not All Pain is Mine, that featured the boat navigating the inner and outer world, beautifully written. I had a comic strip featuring Artemis, a superhero dog that cuts through the fog of mechanical distance to connect people back to their humanity through attention and empathy. And I had a multi-generational iMovie in which my student acted as a reporter, and she interviewed her sister, her mother, and her grandmother about how they're coping. And the sister shared an awful lot with the younger sister shared an awful lot with her older sister that the older sister didn't know about how it was affecting her. The mother shared a lot about how it was affecting her work life. And the grandmother shared a lot about crises that she had been through throughout her life. So that one was especially nice. So what was the learning outcome? Well, I think through this last piece, lesson 3, it was especially connected and hit home with the students because I think they felt validated in their frustrations with the digital world. It's not something we talk a whole lot about in a school setting. Students expressed an understanding of mechanical distance in the digital world and its role in social aggression. They connected with it far more readily than I thought they would, and in ways that I didn't even understand. So they taught me quite a bit through this exercise. I think with all of these lessons that the enduring theme, the lasting learning, is the experience of studying and working with peace literacy as an academic discipline. So students were reading, writing, creating, and getting graded on their understanding of the content and their skills as readers and writers as we moved through these 3 units. And I think that's very important because so many times we talk about kindness, empathy, respect in the context of an advisory, or if we're noticing something's not so right with the classroom community, we might have a discussion, and then it kind of gets set aside for academic study. And this was the first time I think my students had experienced it in a very direct academic way. What they were learning about peace literacy was their academic content. And I think that's really valuable and important for creating a next generation that realizes the importance of their actions, their thoughts, and their relationships as contributing to world peace. So I recommend this unit. I plan to use all 3 lessons in the fall with my students. And this will lead into a social issues book club that I'll be doing with them, where they look at fictional stories that deal with real life issues. And we'll talk about the ongoing COVID epidemic as well as bias in our world. So I'll use that as a lead-in to start the school year. So whether you use this unit digitally or in a classroom, I think it works, and I hope you consider giving it a try.